بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله وبه نستعين ونصلي ونسلم على رسول الله أما بعد. Thank you, Dr. Harith, the MC for today's session, my colleagues from Habib Metro Bank, senior management from Habib University, distinguished audience, my beloved student. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and very good morning to all. I have had a good tour just now by Sukaina. She has been very kind to take me going through the very design and concept and perhaps the soul of the university. While walking through the corridors of the university and looking into the face of the student and every single small design concept of the university, I can relate myself to the university. I can relate myself to the very ideation of creating this university based on what Dr. Amir, Dr. Harith mentioned about the very essence of generosity. And Alhamdulillah, in our Islamic tradition, it's only one ayah that gives you the freedom to do everything. The rest, there's a limitation of freedom, a bit of limitation, but not in the case of generosity. When Allah mentioned in the Quran, وَمَا عَلَى الْمُحْسِنِينَ مِنْ سَبِيلٍ, there shouldn't be and there cannot be any limitation for those who wanted to do good things. In fact, we have to open up the windows for every muhsinin, either in cash or in kind or in whatever they can do to make it happening in this world. And this is a very interesting ayah. We have read the Quran from cover to cover, but this ayah for me is one of the most beautiful statement from the heaven, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you shouldn't be stopping muhsinin. The reverse meaning of this ayah, you should open the opportunities. You should make it easy for people to do wakaf. And in fact, talking to my fellow scholars, we shouldn't be so strict when it comes to zakat and wakaf, because this is the meaning of generosity. I mean, either it is temporary wakaf or permanent wakaf, wakaf in terms of property or books or IP or patent, make it open, because Allah has made it open already. So this is something that I have been speaking to many conferences. When we come to the third sector in the society, we have the public and the private and the third sector, don't put any limit. Even for Shariah fatwa, make it easy for people. That's why Alhamdulillah in Hanafi School of Law, they are the first school of law allowing or you can work out something which is movable in nature, books, chairs and what have you. Other school of thought, they don't allow something which is perpetual. Then in my case, I have gone beyond that. I have allowed even many things in my own experience in banking. In Singapore, for example, I have allowed the Mufti over there, I push him to sell the wakaf asset, which is not productive. I call it tawrid in Islamic term, that is monetization of asset wakaf, to get the proceeds and to build a more modern, trendy and income-generating asset rather than a very isolated and non-productive asset in Singapore, a very small republic over there, because Muslims are under pressure. I told the Mufti sell off, because under the law, within 1 year, if they cannot develop the land, government will repossess what they call the acquisition. They will acquire the land, sell the land, take the money, build a 5-star hotel, 5-star residential, and they have to borrow a bit of sukuk, about 70 million Sing dollar, to develop this kind of interesting building in the center of city of Singapore, in the both Bank Colin and the Orchard Road. Nothing can go wrong, but this is two assets that can give the income until today by open up the opportunity to innovate in this field of work. So coming back to the meaning and the theme of generosity, I think it calls upon all of us to open up our mind and to believe that the third sector in the society is the engine of the growth. Of course, we have the public spending, the government budget, either limited or unlimited, the private sector. But we have to be the third sector and to be spinning up the power of this engine house of the third sector. And wakaf, zakat, sadaqah, nazar, and what have you are the very credential of the third sector in the society. Ladies and gentlemen, another interesting finding in the Quran based on the data that I have collected. Allah mentioned in the Quran, Inna Allaha ya'muru bil adli wal ihsan. Indeed, Allah has ordered you, imposed on you, prescribed upon you to do what is of just, to do what is of fair to the people, the justice and fairness, and also to do what is ihsan to the society. Again, another mind-boggling kind of one ayah, one simple verse of the Quran, as if the adl, the justice and fairness is not good enough. That's why Allah has mentioned immediately after that ayah to be a man of ihsan, a nation of ihsan, a university of ihsan, a Muslim of ihsan. Yes, we have to be a man of justice, fairness. We have to uphold what is right. We have to denounce what is bad, what is not correct, and what is illegal and unlawful. But that is not a good Muslim. A good Muslim is someone who is a man of justice, a man of fairness, black and white in the society. We have to be a man of colorful as well. Ihsan is the colorful, personality of a Muslim. How do we define ihsan? No definition. Anything beyond fairness and justice. We can be fair to someone, we can pay our zakat, this is fair. But zakat is not good enough. We have to do more than zakat. Zakat is a obligation, is part of the pillars of Islam. In fact, in my many books I have mentioned, what is more important in the society, Islamic society, is not zakat. Zakat is the law by default. After 1 year spending your wealth and your money, and you are left with the good amount, nisab, they call it, zakatable amount, you have to pay zakat. But the good character of a Muslim is someone who can spend the money every day. When you spend the money to buy something, you are helping the community. You help the traders, the manufacturers, the ecosystem of the society. So spend the money. Spend every single day. And among the spending would be the infaq, the donation, the donation, the sadaqah, and that what you have done. And this is something which is important, because our thinking as a Muslim, we thought, well, we wait for 1 year and we are done with 1 year, we have some surplus, we pay zakat. No, the very DNA of Islamic society is a society that can spend every single day. When you spend, of course, in the real economy world, they call it domestic growth, right? That can contribute to your GDP of the country. There are two engines of growth for any GDP of the country: domestic spending or exporting your asset and services to overseas, so you can get the foreign asset, foreign income back to your country. So domestic spending is one of the important elements. Well, what is the problem of Muslim society? Before I come to the last part of my talk about this university, great university. I'm impressed and very much excited and wanted to talk and write more about this university in the next few months and few years. It's a good exemplary university beyond my expectation. Okay. What is the problem of Islamic society? The problem of Islamic society, we can't spend. Why we cannot spend? Because our income per capita is one of the lowest in the world. How can you spend if you don't have excess money, right? You have to have surplus of wealth for you to spend. Of course, we can spend a bit, $1 or $2 or whatever, but the real spending needs a lot of excess and surplus. And I was astonished in the Quran when Allah mentioned this fact clearly. Al-Baqarah 219. يَسْأَلُونَكَ مَاذَا يُنْفِقُونَ قُلِ الْعَفْوَ. The companion of the prophets, they were asking the prophets, how and what to spend, O Prophet? مَاذَا يُنْفِقُونَ. The company was asking, how do how can they spend their money? Allah has revealed to the Prophet, Qul, say, O Prophet, to them, Qulil afwa, say, you spend what is of your surplus. Ibn Abbas, the famous commentator of the Quran, was saying, Al-afwa min al-fadla, something excess of your need of the day. So the surplus mindset is missing in our society. We thought whatever we have is good enough. It is good enough. No. Again, in my other books, I have written, I have argued, I have put the motion, Islamic society must start thinking to be a society and nation of surplus. Only then we can start helping our society. And that is the chicken and egg. How do we create a more surplus-based society? We need to create employment, right? We need to give everyone the opportunity to work. Al-Qarafi was saying in his book that al-aslu fin nasi al-kasbu, the very creation of human is to be able to work. But if they cannot work, not because they cannot work, there's no opportunities given to them. So we have to reverse the thinking process. Everywhere in the Islamic society, people are looking for a job, not only for a job, for a decent job, that they can bring back some money to their family. So how to arrest this dilemma is to provide opportunities. How to provide opportunities? Many ways. Among others, the university. Give them the proper education over 4 years. I have to give my footnote of this statement. I'm also the chairman of Islamic Religious Council in Kuala Lumpur under the King, direct under the King. I was the president of the Public University, International Islamic University, Malaysia. And back then, I was the deputy vice chancellor of the same university. That I left, I set up my own company. But I have seen in the whole process, we have to have two approaches. Not many people are able and keen to come to proper education for 4 years or 5 years. And for that, we have to have another program, upscaling and rescaling. And we have to do more of this nature. So the poor people in Malaysia under my leadership, I started reducing the opportunities to go to the university because they don't have the time to go for 4 years. They need to work as soon as possible to help their family. So I cut short, I take all the budget, few million, 200 million, 300 million ringgit Malaysia, and start channeling them to the short courses, 6 months, 3 months, with the the job guarantee by the counterparties. So 3 months they can go to the workforce. And this money, 300 million, is not our money, it's zakat money and wakaf money. So I'm using that to support this kind of one cohort of the student who cannot afford to go for the university because mentally they're not ready. A group of students, they can take a higher inspiration. We prepare them to go to the university. Even for that, we have to spend few million to educate them. We have to go to their houses, small houses, talk to their parents, educate them. Come, bring your son, bring your daughter from that house to come to our university. We sponsor everything. It's educational process. Education is not about open up the door. It's about the whole thing. That's why the budget is needed a lot to ensure the success story of education agenda. Now this university, Alhamdulillah, I'm very happy. This is my last day in my tour in Karachi or Pakistan. I think I am impressed and with the idea of the founder of this university. May Allah bless their soul if they have in the past have then left this world, and may Allah bless those who are looking after this university, and that include all the lecturers, all the staff and the students. I think we have to make this university a success story. We cannot afford to fail. I don't think I have seen, this kind of idea, 100% funded by Wakaf, with this kind of facility, with this kind of, a big dream that you have put in place. I have seen enough for the last half an hour or so. I think I'm convinced that we have to work together in many respects to replicate Habib University in other parts of the world. if not in the design, in the concept of it. And Alhamdulillah, I come to know that Waqaf is still a living document. It's still living among us. It's not yet dead. And Alhamdulillah, the Prophet has been reported to have said, as you know by now, everyone, that and if a person dies, إِذَا مَاتَ ابْنُ آدَمْ إِنْقَطَعَ عَنْهُ إِلَّا مِنْ ثَلَاثٍ. When a person dies, everything will be disconnected from him, of course, between that life and our current life, except from three things. Everything will be disconnected. Will be, there's no relationship anymore with this planet and whatever we are doing now, except from three things. Sadaqah Jariyah, that is a continuous donation. Of course, it means waqaf, that your waqaf will be able to send the reward to you all the way until the day of judgment. Walidun salihin yad'u lah, the obedient or the good son and daughter who pray for the father and the mother. Of course, we cannot distinguish between the father and the mother, because both are the parent. And the third, ilmin yuntafa'u bihi, the knowledge which is useful to the humanity, to the whole humanity, be it Islamic teaching or physics or mathematics or statistics. These are the ilmun yuntafa' bihi, the good knowledge that is beneficial to human being. I would like to believe that this university has captured three of them together. It's a good waqaf concept. We are training the children of the university, the student of the university, and we also capturing the knowledge. That's why I don't understand that before, for many years. The best waqaf would be in the waqaf of a university, because you can capture three things together. Waqaf, by definition, walad, the children, and many scholars were saying these children are not necessarily biological children. They can be extended children, like students. Whenever they pray for their teachers and the academics faculties, this is something that the academic faculty will have some reward from them. And of course, the university, the place when we spread the knowledge. So I think this is the good thing, that we have to be a bit bold, courageous to support this university. We have to make it more successful. We have to make it, in the map of the world. Of course, we heard about Al-Azhar University and many other great universities which is based on waqaf. But they are all waqaf. We wanted to see the modern waqaf. Even in Malaysia, as I speak, there's no longer modern waqaf. The waqaf that we have in our registrar or registration database, all of them from our Indian Muslim coming to Malaysia. Ahmad Daduji, for example, has put all his money for mosque, for school, and what have you. Yemeni, traders coming to Malaysia, but we have not seen the new and modern waqaf. Habib University is modern waqaf. And very few in this world that we are talking about this new concept of waqaf. And Alhamdulillah, I wanted to end my speech. I would like to appeal to everyone, be a man of a generosity. And you will not regret forever, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised unlimited reward for those who do generosity. Interestingly, when you read the Quran and whatnot, the reward is very much fixed. There's a mathematics of reward for everything else, but not for generosity. Allah will make it double and multiplied, and there's no limit for that. There's no limit for that. The minimalist reward will be 70,000 times. This is the power of reward. Why prayer we cannot get 70,000 times? Because prayer is for yourself. Why zakat cannot have? Because it's obligation to do that. The same for Hajj, for yourself, for a bit of limited impact on the society. But infaq in the Quran, Al-Baqarah, it's like getting 70,000 times for every one, whatever dollar or rupiah or hour. And last one, Dr. Haris, I wanted to share with you what I have been writing on Wakaf. There's an element of Wakaf which is not yet developed, but there were many evidences in the writing of the fuqaha, the jurists. They call Wakaf al-Manafi', to Wakaf the usufruct, the lecturer, their time, the doctors, the nurses. And not only that, we can monetize the credit hour of the lecturers into a unit where the Wakaf can support the salaries of the academician. And it has been done in the past. One good case, when one of the rivers in the Morocco called Fez River was contaminated, was polluted, and they need some budget to clean the water back to normal. And there was Wakaf, they call Wakaf al-Anhar, the Wakaf of river. And this is to support the expenses to clean the river, to bring it back to the normal scenario. And that is a very powerful Wakaf. It's not about giving to individual or property or what have you, to support the expenses of the operation to make it happen. I think I will stop at that juncture. My pleasure to be invited to this great university. Let us make this university one of the best exemplary example of a modern and living Wakaf of the day. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
What you describe as modern Wakaf and modern Wakaf given to educational institutions. Like, can you follow on these examples a bit more and describe how this kind of process, as in giving Wakaf to educational institutions, has led to economic prosperity, like, discernible results in economic prosperity in society, starting with Malaysia, and if you can cite other examples from other countries elsewhere in the world, given the experience that you have as a scholar, as a thinker in the area of Islamic banking and finance.
Thank you very much for that futurist kind of question, to look into the future of the ultimate destination of Wakaf-based education. I think we started experiencing this Wakaf for education last few decades because the Wakaf has died already. For the new Wakaf, we are inheriting the old Wakaf, the legacy of Wakaf, and that's why we cannot go beyond the current and the modern requirement of the day. I don't think we have good example in Malaysia. Of course, I have mentioned about the Singapore good example, because with the limited resources and by being strategic a bit, they can have, in terms of ROI, in terms of return on the Wakaf, will be multifold by having the courage to sell the unproductive Wakaf asset and getting the money, about 7 million Sing dollar, and they borrow sukuk about 19 million from a bank, and they use the money to build one mosque, a few school, and one residential, 5-star residential service apartment, where the rental from that service apartment can sustain the school and the mosque forever. Of course, they have to pay the coupon of the sukuk for 5 years. After the 5 years is ended, everything coming to them rather than to the sukuk investors. So this is a very good example how you can make a small asset becoming very significant asset, and you can support the education. They give scholarship for the tahfiz, madrasa, university student, the community Muslim who are minority in Singapore. Why I mention about Singapore? Because we need to have the courage to sell the asset. You ask our current mufti and ulama in Malaysia, they will not allow that. Never. The best they can allow is istibdal, replacement. You buy new asset, you replace, they call replacement of asset. But in the Maliki school of thought, there's a kind of argument that in the time of the Prophet even, people can sell one of the pillars of the mosque because they need money to sustain the mosque. They can sell
let's say they have the date orchard, they can sell quarter of the orchard to get the money to sustain the mosque and to pay the salary of the imam. This is the reality cash flow of the wakaf. Then the good example I think I have seen is in Indonesia. In Indonesia, they have two group of Islamic, foundation, Muhammadiyah and Nahdlatul Ulama. Of course, their members, you don't ask me how many. One foundation have 80 million members. So 80 million members, if they put $1 a day, it's 80 million a day, right? So this is a new concept over there. So they become well sustained, not through wakaf, through cooperative society. So wakaf is one element to create the education. But in Muhammadiyah, the founder of Muhammadiyah, perhaps you have heard about their story, Ustaz Dahlan, during the colonial power of the Holland, there was for Muslim to get back to what we used to be. We have to focus on three things: education, health, and financial. So now they own the biggest pharmaceutical company in Indonesia. They have many universities, many schools in Indonesia, and of course the financial, they started talking to me and my colleague to own a bank, digital bank and whatnot. So this is a very inspirational concept of doing something good for the society. Here, how can we really wakaf? I can see that in Indonesia they managed to cover the need of Indonesian students for education because they can provide free schooling. Of course, for the poor, they charge for the upper hand in the society. Wakaf is very much appealing to the philanthropists because you are talking about education. You're not talking about infrastructure and environment. They're still good. In the past, they were wakaf for to take care of bird which are left over by the group. So wakaf come in and help the bird to be fit and to join the group after 1 year when the group come back to the same area. Wakaf al-Majanin, to wakaf to entertain the psychiatric patient in the cell. They call wakaf al-Majanin. So there are many wakaf, but education is the highest wakaf in the history of Islam in the past, because this is the only way to elevate poverty, give the opportunities, because education is the key word for any civilizational development of the country. But where are we in the wakaf educational motivational approach? We are nothing. I mean, we are in the beginning of everything. How to move forward, Dr. Haris? For me, I think we need to open up the mind of our Muslim community that we need to believe in the education first, then wakaf. We have to reverse the scientific mind. At the moment we talk about wakaf, people cannot get it. But the moment we convince them that education is the way forward for this nation, for other nation, I think they will come strongly. Last point, in Malaysia we set up what we call the long-term funding for the children in the future. So when a baby was born, we at the Wakaf and Zakat Foundation, we started subscribing to his future investment. Not much, we pay about 5,000 ringgit for every newborn among the poor family. 5,000. When he reached 17 years old, he will get in his account about 28,000 through investment in Shariah compliant way. So 17 years of investment, let's say multiply 4% a year or 5% a year, he or she will get 18,000 ringgit in his account for his education. So there are many ways of doing to help our education. That's why, though we are talking about wakaf, I wanted everyone to take the meaning of the Quran which I mentioned, وَمَا عَلَى الْمُحْسِنِينَ مِنْ سَبِيلٍ. There cannot be any limitation in doing good things. It can be done doing this way or that way. What is more important, our poor family and poor children and poor students, they have something to fall back on when they need that kind of help in the future.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bakar. And I have a Second question for you. I'm just like very curious about your book, the Sharia Minds in International Finance, which has been a best-selling book. And I was wondering if, based on the findings of this book, you can enlighten us about the ways in which Al-Ihsan as core moral virtue of Islamic banking and Sharia banking can give structural stability to global financial markets, which you must know very well are inherently unstable and, and have been volatile for decades, in fact. And these days we are living through a period of increasing sort of entropy and chaos. So if you can shed some light on that.
Well, in that book in 2016, I didn't talk about this kind of topic, Waqaf, generosity and Ihsan that much, because that book was an autobiographical book on the life of the Shariah advisors of the world. That include myself, how do we see things, how do we reason things, and how do we react to all the phenomena of the world, be it social, economic, politics, you know, media and what have you. But in my latest book, Al-Maqasid Shariah, the very objective of the Sharia, I have argued in my book that we shouldn't be limiting ourselves to 5 Maqasid al-Sharia, which is very much traditionally accepted by the scholars, because if we are happy to agree and settle on 5 Maqasid, that will make our religion Islam very naive. We cannot have the civilization dialogue with the other civilization. People talk about science and technology, about ihsan, about the woman, about the environment, about sustainability, about water, about war and peace, and many other things. So I have taken the liberty to make it 30 maqasid al-sharia. You know what, Dr. Haris? One of the 30 maqasid al-sharia, one of them is ihsan. Because you survey the verses on ihsan in the Quran, in fact, ihsan is being mentioned by Allah more than al-adl. Adl is the very foundation of life, but not good enough in our society. A fair financial system is good, but an ihsan financial system is better. But no one is talking about a fairer, a more equitable financial system, including Islamic financial system. We are still looking into halal and halalness, which is good. I'm not saying this good, but I think we have to move forward how to make our financial system, be it macro and micro policies, not only fair, not only halal, not only compliant, but also fairer, ihsanic approach. And I have compiled all the verses on ihsan to show that ihsan is one of the maqasid al-sharia, that we cannot ignore it. And interestingly, I mean, if you have the time, you can Google the word ihsan and hasuna. It's a very living, organism kind of concept. It relates to the family, the family affairs. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Ihsan has been used in children, in parent, in neighborhood, in financial, in relationship, in everything. So ihsan is not only in financial donation and whatnot, it's beyond. And even up to now, I have not seen, I could be wrong, a book, a research paper that go deeper into the very semantic and cognitive understanding of ihsan. People talk about ihsan semantically, one layer, but the cognitive understanding, few layers down there, we have not been discovered. Perhaps this university, seeing your tagline is Yuhsin or Ihsan in particular, we need to have a more cognitive, data-driven understanding of Ihsan in the Quran first, and from there we can relate to the policy of the world. How Ihsan, the policy on sustainability, how Ihsan, the policy on pension in the country, how Ihsan, the policy on education for the young people, how Ihsan, whatever, policy on water, drinkable and affordable water for the people on the ground, employment and what have you. So the ihsan, if you can reverse everything, Ihsan is the quality of life. To have a good, prosperous and blessed life, you need to have an Ihsan appreciation of it. So it's very powerful. It's not only for Habib University, but for everyone in this world.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bakar, for these illuminating responses. It really helps us think about the significance of ihsan in a world that is so beset with unevenness and inequality and volatility. Well, let's take questions from, yes, please. Yes.
I have a boring question, but a Shariah question.
Yeah.
You know, you just said that under Maliki law, one can you are suggesting monetization of a work. But why? Because most of us in Pakistan are Hanafi, as you know. So Hanafi, Shafi'i and Hanbali, right? Is there a particular reason why they are limiting that it cannot be monetized, number one? Number two, like you're saying, can there be an ijma that, you know, that scholars say that it's for the greater good of the society? And then, you know, like...
Yeah.
I know it's a very technical.
No, it's not boring. It's a very difficult question to me. Very challenging question to me. I have traced the history of Waqfiyah, the deed of Waqaf in the past. They were following the proper deed of Waqfiyah, meaning to say, when they do Waqaf for the mosque, for the graveyard, for the university and education, they just don't put the money for the university. They will put some asset generating income to support the OPEX of the school and university and the graveyard. You have to clean the grass, you have to cut the grass, you have to put the light, you have to do this. And normally, they put one piece of land for the mosque and another orchard or whatever project to get some income. Otherwise, it become white elephant. It happened in our country. When we are done with the mosque, we do have the money to pay salaries for the imam, for the cleaner, for the maintenance and whatnot. And that's why they call Waqaf al-Siyana, Waqaf for maintenance. It was part and parcel of the Waqfiyah, of the document of Waqaf. Our modern time, we wanted to do Waqaf, and our Islamic Council accepted it. You do piece of land for the mosque, and we accept it. Then we built the mosque. Sometimes the land without the money to build the mosque, and the land will be ideal for 100 years, 200 years. By right, if I were in charge in the authority, I would say to him, look, you have the 7 acre of land to do the mosque. Why can't you put 5 acre for the mosque, 2 acre for lease or rental or sell off? Take the money to build the mosque and this is considered part of your waqaf still. It does not dilute your reward. Because to sustain the mosque, you have to have cash flow, right? So the cash flow mentality is being lacking in our society. Therefore, in Malaysia, we have white elephant waqaf. A lot of waqaf asset for the last 100 years, 200 years, 500 years, still not being developed because the cash flow problem. That's why we have to move forward. If we can control, put aside some asset for the cash flow generating asset. If we cannot, we have to rely on the other school of thought who allows, in fact, I have checked even in Shafi'i School of Law, the minority was saying, if you need to, reduce the size of the mosque, so be it. To sustain, to ensure the sustainability of the mosque. Let's say you need to carve out, they call carve out a small piece of the mosque by selling, they call the wood, the wood. In the old time, there was no whatever equipment. You have to sell the wood to get some money to repair the mosque, the proper mosque, leakage and what have you. You can do that. Provided in the Shafi'i School of Thought, you have to get the consent from the Al-Qadi, from the government regulator. Otherwise, people will sell everything in our society. So there is some governance to be put in place. But the fatwa said you can do that provided you get Al-Ihsan Al-Qadi in Arabic term. So this is my thinking process. I've started telling the Malaysian authority for the waqaf, for the new waqaf, make sure you have the source of income to build the mosque and to sustain the mosque.
But as a woman, I love Maliki law because when it's when you need most flexibility
Yeah.
for women, it's the Maliki law.
Yeah.
Hanafis are more strict.
I don't want to comment on that. Even in Malaysia, we are Shafi'i school of thought. When it comes to the family laws, under Maliki school of thought, if you wanted to break the family ties, you can pay back the dowry and the khulu. In Malaysia, under the pressure of so many people, we are having a hybrid. We can bring the case to the court, and we can put the appeal to the court, and the court will decide either you can do khulu or otherwise. At least we have the middle way between the man and the.
That's the strength of Islam to allow.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Doctor. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for that very inspiring talk. I wanted to ask you about a couple of terms. I think reflection on some of these central words actually yields some philosophical, as well as it gives us a little more guidance as to how we are to take our orientation. Like Ihsan, for instance, or Ihsan is related to Husn. So obviously that's the root. So there's beauty in it, which is why your talk is also titled The Beauty of Generosity. Similarly, these two words, I'd just like to say a couple of things about waqafa, about waqf, and sadqa. So waqafa means coming to a stop.
Yes, right.
To a standstill. So actually, doesn't it, and this is my question to you, it's a bit speculative, doesn't it suggest something of the suspension of the normal economic logic, which otherwise governs wealth? So it's actually suspending that economic logic that otherwise governs wealth. And on the other hand, sadqa, which of course relates to truth and sincerity. So doesn't this have the implication that precisely through generosity...
What is your background, Prof? What is your background? Are you in the...
Actually, it's a historical anthropology.
Historical anthropology, okay.
So sadqa, then, sincerity and truth, it's through acts of generosity that we actually show our sincerity and truthfulness.
That's right.
So it's like an authentication, like the Americans say, putting your money where your mouth is, kind of thing. Right? So what do you think?
I think on the sadaqah, you are right. Sadaqah is derived from the word of sadaqah, to be truth to yourself, to be truthful to yourself. Because the most difficult good act of a Muslim is to do sadaqah. The most difficult thing. That's why the Quran has rewarded the highest reward. People can do everything, can read Quran, can do this, can do that. But when it comes to taking your money out and give away to charity, mashallah, a lot of excuses. And you are not truthful to yourself. That's why a sadaqah is derived from the root word of sadaqah, to be truthful to yourself, to your proclamation of becoming a Muslim. Even shahada is to witness your own truthfulness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The same go to the deed of financial deed. That's why the reward, is they call proportionality concept. In this world and hereafter, it's always proportional concept. The highest will be the hardest, and will be the highest reward in terms of proportionality. The proportionality is everywhere in this world. And Islam, everything is about proportionality. You take the highest risk, you can get the highest profit. You take the lowest risk, you cannot take except the lowest return and risk. So proportionality is the central word that we need to articulate in our society. But the understanding of waqafa is a bit not right, because waqafa means to stop and to suspend your private ownership. Your private ownership, you are giving back the ownership back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the very meaning of waqafa, to stop your private ownership. But it does not stop the economic activities. In the past, the asset that can generate income is waqaf asset, not the government asset. Government asset are not productive asset. they are school, they are university, but the wakaf asset, you can make it a commercial transaction. This is another aspect that we are not ready to discuss, but wakaf asset are supposed to be income generating asset. For example, this university, I have seen you have so many facilities. You can rent out to outsider to come and play and football. You can put the spotlight and you can make it 247, which I did. I'm also the owner of football club. I need to think how to monetize and commercialize every square meter of my building. Everything you can put to bring back the money to the wakaf. Zamzam Tower in Haram, next to Masjid Haram, is based on wakaf. I'm also the advisor of Zamzam Tower. Sofa Tower is also based on sukuk. Zamzam Tower is based on sukuk al-intifa, where they need about, I cannot recall the money, about 500 million US dollar to construct the high-rise Zamzam Tower. And the owner of the apartment can stay in the apartment about 15 days in a year, but the rest they can lease out or rent out to the Hujjaj and Mu'tamirin, those who do Umrah and Hajj. And after 30 years or 33 years, that wakaf will go back to the real wakaf Malik Abdullah, if I'm not mistaken. And all that area being built by wakaf concept. That land is wakaf land. But they need the money to construct. They don't have the money. They issue sukuk like I did in Singapore. In fact, I was the first before Zamzam Tower, the first in the world. We monetized the land of wakaf by collecting the sukuk. So this is how the sukuk, how the wakaf asset has been developed. So having wakaf asset does not mean you have to stop economic activities. In fact, to make wakaf sustainable, you have to put the mindset of economic activities. This is my thinking process, Prof. I think you have some follow-up questions. Let the...
Can fitra be also about donation?
Sorry?
The fitra that we do after Ramadan,
Yeah.
can it be a part of generosity?
Yeah, but it is an obligation. Generosity and obligation does not come together. You have to put the aside. Sorry, Prof. Your follow-up question.
No, it's okay.
Yeah?
Dr.
Yeah.
Kayani, please. Dr. Ayaz, can you ask a question? Yes. We'll make this the last question.
Yeah. I'm open for more time if you like. But
Okay. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Bakar.
Yeah.
And Jazakallah for that.
Thank you.
Great presentation. So, I mean, I'm not an expert in any of the areas that I'm going to ask the question about, but I mean, this is just from what I've generally come across.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned the maqasid of Sharia.
Yeah.
And the five ones, I mean, like that's like ancient, like canonized. But the attitude I've often encountered, I mean, amongst muftis and ulama here in Pakistan, tends to be that they're extremely reluctant and skeptical when it comes to using the maqasid for any fatwa. I mean, what I often get is something along the lines of, well, can you use the maqasid for this? And it's like, no. The maqasid were reached inductively after looking at centuries of fatwa and saying, okay, these might be the underlying tendencies there, but we don't use it for any fatwa and not even to apply maslaha. So, I mean, you said you would expand it to 13. First of all, is this the impression you have of the maqasid, and do you think that the maqasid should be used positively for fatwa, and therefore you can then judge, okay, this is for betterment? So hence the maslaha should be that, okay, if these maqasid are optimized by this particular action, that's what we should do. Because they tend to be very reluctant to do that. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for that question. I wanted to put some intellectual statement over here. You mentioned about two terms just now. Thank you for that. Maslahah and maqasid. Maslahah is the purpose of the Shariah based and supported by one text, either Quran or Sunnah. Maqasid, on the contrary, is any good objective which is supported by a number of texts. Ma'qul jumlatun nusus in Arabic term. It's the reasoning and the beauty of a number of texts, a basket of Quranic texts or the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's why the maqasid should go up there. I cannot compare maqasid with maslahah. Maslahah, you do things, let's say you do fasting, it's good for your health. good for your organ to rest a bit, good for your blood, blood circulation. It's maslahah. But you put everything together to protect the life and to protect the regime, become maqasid al-Shariah. So when it comes to the mufti and the fatwa, you are right. Even in Malaysia, some school of thought, they look into the technicalities of the fatwa, the mathematics of the fatwa, without bringing the high policies of the maqasid. So in my book, I think even in our school of thought, we don't believe in maqasid either. But as someone, I have ventured, traveled a lot. Maqasid nowadays in the school of the Maliki, the Shatibi. But the founders of Maqasid al-Shariah are Shafi'is. Al-Ghazali, Al-Juwayni, Al-Baqilani, Al-Ais bin Abdul Salam. All of these are great Shafi'i scholars in the history of school. But somehow in between, the Maqasid has disappeared, and it was reinvented by the Maliki scholars in the northern Africa. Ibn Ashur, Talal, Alal al-Fasi, and Arasuni, the living scholar of Morocco nowadays, one of the great scholars who write and talk and deliberate about maqasid. For me, this is something we have to articulate. Don't give up. Everyone has their own way of looking into the things. My job is to write and to articulate. It's good for the university also to read my book, to understand, because the book is not about Sharia. The book is called Maqasid al-Shariah, the face and voice of the Sharia, embedded by artificial intelligence and AI. I'm bringing the smart technology into the Quran and try to extract what is really the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through repetitive and cumulative pattern of certain theme in the Quran. Ihsan, one of them, and many other themes. Quran is never a limited source of inspiration. Quran is always everlasting, but you have to have the right methodology to extract the beauty of the Quran. So I think I cannot comment much, but I think this is a new thing in Islamic world as a whole, in Malaysia, Indonesia, Pakistan. But every school of thought have their own way of doing things. Nothing is wrong, nothing is completely wrong. But if you believe in maqasid, talk about it, articulate it. For me, I have taken 5 years to publish this book, and I'm sure the book can be a useful addition to the knowledge. Maqasid Shariah Part 2 will be coming. I'm writing how to construct the new policies of Islamic State using Maqasid Shariah in detail, in housing, employment, education, environment, women position, in adl, justice, what have you. So I try to go back to the Quran, having laid down the 30 maqasid al-Sharia. I wanted to attack the very battle of the day, how each and every verses of the Quran fit in to the very challenges of the hour that we are having. This is, as an educationist, don't give up, articulate, talk about it, publish your own views. This is how the knowledge expand everywhere in the world. So thank you very much for this opportunity.